Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive deep. What are we exploring today?
Well, we're tackling a DAX function that a lot of folks have been asking about. Evaluate in log.
Yes, that's a good one. It's a powerful tool.
It is. And we both know how important DAX is. Data analysis expressions, it's the heart of so much we do in Excel and Power BI.
Right, it's how we make sense of our data, how we ask those complex questions and get those insightful answers.
Exactly. And evaluate in log, well, it's like it gives us this special key to unlock even more from our DAX calculations.
Kind of like getting a backstage pass to see how those calculations are actually working, right?
Yeah, perfect analogy. A backstage pass to our DAX formulas.
Yeah.
Seeing behind the scenes. And, sometimes those DAX expressions, they can get pretty complex, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely had moments where I felt like I was getting lost in a maze of calculations.
Me too. And that's where this function, evaluate in log, can be a lifesaver. It's like, remember that time I was telling you about? That massive report I was building?
I think so, yeah.
One of the calculations just wouldn't work, no matter what I did. I was staring at it for hours, going line by line.
Ugh, I've been there. It's so frustrating.
It is. Finally, I thought, okay, I'm going to try this evaluate and log thing. Out of desperation, almost.
And
It was like a miracle. Suddenly, I could see everything. The log showed me exactly what was happening at each step, and boom, there it was.
what was it?
The tiniest typo in a column name, buried deep within the formula.
Yeah.
I would have never spotted it otherwise.
Wow. So it really does give you that step-by-step breakdown.
It does. It's like having a detailed transcript of your DAX formula in action. Inputs, outputs, all the intermediate steps. It's all right there.
And you can view this log using different tools, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's SQL Server Profiler, which is a more general tool for database activity. And then there's the DAX Debug Output tool, which is specifically made for DAX.
So we have a way to see what's going on. But how about the how-to? How do we actually use evaluate in log? What does the syntax look like?
Okay, so the syntax is pretty straightforward, actually. It starts with the DAX expression you want to evaluate. That's the value parameter.
Right. So that's the calculation we want to peek into.
Exactly. Then there's an optional label parameter. It's basically like a nickname for your calculation. It just helps you identify it in the log.
Okay, so we can label things for clarity.
Yep. And finally, you have the max rows parameter. This is useful when you're working with tables because it limits how many rows show up in the log.
Makes sense, especially if you're working with a huge table. You don't want to be overwhelmed with rows in the log.
Exactly. And the default for max rows is 10, which is usually enough to get a good idea of what's going on.
Huh.
So we've got this powerful tool, but we've talked a lot about debugging, and it's great for that. But what else can we use evaluate and log for? You mentioned performance optimization before, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's say you've got a DAX expression and it's running really slowly.
Uh-oh.
Not good. Nope, not good at all. So you can use evaluate and log to see how many rows are being processed at each step in your calculation. And then you can spot those bottlenecks, those points where things slow down.
And then we can make it more efficient.
Exactly. You might find that you're filtering the same huge table multiple times or doing really intense calculations on every single row when you don't need to. The log can help you see those things.
That's great. So we can make our DAX leaner and meaner. I like it. So we talked about sales earlier as an example, but I bet there are tons of ways to use evaluate and log in the real world. What are some other scenarios?
So many, yeah. Imagine you're working with customer churn for a subscription service. You want to see why people are leaving, right?
But a very common analysis.
It is. So you might have a DAX expression that calculates the churn rate maybe for each month. If
Yeah.
you use evaluate and log, you can break that calculation down.
I see. So you could spot errors in how churn is being calculated.
You could. Maybe some customers are being misclassified, or there are special cases your formula isn't catching. The log will show you those things, and you can refine your calculations.
That's really cool. And it makes the analysis so much more accurate. But I know every tool has its limits. What are the downsides to evaluate and log?
Right. Well, it's important to remember that while it's super useful in Power BI Desktop, in other environments, it's more of a placeholder. It might not work the same way.
Okay, good to know.
And sometimes, complex expressions can create massive logs, especially if you're working with a ton of data. It can be a lot to sift through.
Like drinking from a fire hose, all that data.
Yeah, exactly. So you might need to use filters or specific analysis tools to make sense of it all.
Makes sense. Anything else to watch out for?
Couple more things. Sometimes, because of internal optimizations, the engine might skip the function entirely, so no log entry.
Oh, wow. So it might not even run.
It might not, yeah. Which can be annoying if you're depending on it to debug. And another thing, if your log gets too big, over 1 million characters, it gets cut off, truncated to keep its JSON structure.
JSON structure.
Yeah, think of JSON like a way of organizing data, like a digital filing cabinet. Truncating keeps things organized, but it means you might miss some details in the log.
So evaluate and log is powerful, but we need to be smart about using it.
Definitely. But when you use it the right way, it can change how you work with DAX, especially if you really want to understand what's happening under the hood.
Totally agree. It's like having a superpower, being able to read the mind of your DAX formulas. So here's something to think about as you go forth and conquer DAX. Could we use evaluate and log proactively? Not just to fix problems, but to build better formulas from the start. How would you use it to make sure your calculations are rock solid from day one? I bet there are lots of creative ways to do just that.